to another celebration of 1 year.
100 years.
Of Moto Stories with Unkie Phil. And of course, a lot of the viewers, a lot of the listeners, they see these various different people show up. And they want to kind of like, hey, where do you find that guy? Well, tell the listeners, tell the viewers how we got together, like how we ended up.
I started stalking Phil way back in the day when he was at his West 25th Street shop.
Yeah.
And, just happened to drive by there. I'm like, oh, look at that little, probably my wife said something like, hey,
we were right downtown.
There's like a scooter shop down there. You should check it out. So I used to go in there, and he had mostly scooters, but a lot of vintage scooters at the time. You were just starting to carry some Kimco.
Yeah, a lot of the companies really weren't represented in the United States that early. This was the early 2000s. And so most of our inventory was bikes that I had found and put together and made run.
It was all neat stuff and stuff that I was very interested in, and a nice little lineup. You always had a little section of some bikes.
Yeah.
So it wasn't all just scooters. It was, and then a lot of those bikes tended to be some old Hondas, and I was really into some old Hondas. So.
I had figured out a way to use my business to supplement my addiction, which is any good addict will tell you that's what you do. And I had probably 5 or 6 at various different times. Remember at one time we had a row of every motorcycle that Honda sold in 1971.
Pretty close.
We had everything from a 90cc up to a 750 in one row. It was kind of cool.
That was when we were here in Lakewood. At that one point,
you're right. That was in Lakewood. Yeah.
We literally, there was at the heyday of selling used vintage Hondas. We had everything.
We did. There was nothing you didn't have.
We moved a lot of metal.
When you showed up at our shop, and when we were on West 25th Street, that was a long time ago.
Well, I liked going out sometimes down that area, and it was the garage bar needs some mention. So. I'd go down there with my wife, and you guys would be down there. I'd see you. It was like, hey, hi, But then there's James. James was always like, Rrr. So it was like...
Yeah, okay.
I did give a highlight.
If you have ever met James, you'll know that was what we call James 1.0.
But then I think then mid-Ohio ran into, and then just here and there, just slowly.
And that was the thing that, in that period of time, in that neighborhood was always a really challenged neighborhood, but it was starting to pick up. And that opening of the garage bar was funny, because it was a motorcycle, a car, themed garage, obviously.
I really liked the garage bar.
And we enjoyed it, we had a great time with it, and it gave grease monkeys like us, idiots that we were literally coming in from work with shit under our fingernails looking like crap. And we actually gave the place authenticity. Yeah. So as much as the place was beautiful and it had beautiful neon and artwork and everything was top dollar, it didn't have any actual grit.
Yeah, we were the people who were actually showing up on something on two wheels. So,
and everything we'd park in front of the garage bar was always like, that should be in front of a garage. Yeah. So we never parked anything that looked shiny. And it was fun. We had the run of that place for a long time. The owner and the owners loved seeing us show up. And just like any good thing, it got ruined. So, it just went away. Yeah. So, too bad.
Nothing good ever lasts.
Nothing great lasts, and that's for sure. And then we ultimately just got priced out of the neighborhood. So it was kind of funny. The neighborhood got so good it wouldn't have us anymore. So the neighborhood was like, okay, we're raising your rent again for the 15th time. Well, I think we got the memo. We're like, we can't afford to be here anymore. But it was fun. I mean, we did so many events. There was a lot of stuff there. I discovered very quickly on that John had a talent for Honda motorcycles. And anytime I would beat my head against a wall and literally be screwed on a bike that I couldn't get working, I started realizing if I called him or got him to come and look at it, he was that extra set of eyes, but the world's fastest troubleshooter. Super fast.
Yeah, I talked about working for you because, I just lost my job or whatever, and it was at the Lake Erie Loop thing, and I was like, and I'm like, well, I worked on a lot of motorcycles, but I never worked on a scooter, and you're like, that's fine, that's great.
Yeah. We can flip you the other way. If you're a motorcycle mechanic, we can train you to be a scooter mechanic, but sometimes it's hard if you're the other way around.
So I think that was then after that, I can't stop by the shop, and I started working there, and then, then a whole line of a lot of vintage Hondas grew up.
Yeah. I'd say that we probably did 200 vintage Hondas out of that Lakewood store. And it's very funny because if we go to a bike night or something here in town and we'll see bikes and we're like, oh yeah, remember that? It's like, that exists because we rescued it. Yeah. That showed up to us as a box of parts from somebody's basement. John and I actually went and rescued a bike out of a guy's basement.
Yep.
That he had built the basement after he put the bike down there.
Yep.
Oh boy. The bike was this wide, but the paneling had made the staircase far narrower than the bike was.
At least the motor wasn't still in the bike.
No way.
That made that a lot easier.
The motor was out of the bike, a CB750, but when we showed up to do this job,
the backdoor CB750.
Yeah, it was literally a backdoor CB750, and it's a K0.5, a K1 half cast, so it's a very rare bike to begin with.
Through a couple different moves that made it to my garage right now.
Right, exactly. Well, the rule we have here at the shop, we conjured James's name earlier.
Yeah.
Anything that James buys, you can always be like, don't feel bad if James gets something you really wish you got. Just hang in there, because James will every 18 months or so purge everything he owns.
Yeah.
And if you're in the right spot at the right time, you can buy it.
They'll marinate for a while.
He lets it marinate.
I traded him a perfectly running motorcycle that Wayne on this very podcast said was one of the greatest bikes he ever owned.
Exactly. Right. It wasn't like you stole it from him.
I put 12,000 miles on it, which I didn't know that. Well, that explains why it blew up, because
it does.
After 12,000 miles, it ran out of oil.
It did run out of oil. Yeah, you can imagine a motorcycle with no oil and it's not going to last real long. No, not so much. No. It's a very funny thing about internal combustion motors.
Cinch, you mentioned the first time we kissed, we've not really kissed. I mean, like little.
No,
I try to peck him. He's a little more standoffish.
I am in person. When you meet me in person, you'll find that I'm a lot of talk and no hot wax.
I will say this: at one point, Phil did say he wouldn't mind doing a threesome with me.
I did.
So at one,
we still have to pick the other guy, yo. So we're kind of looking. We're auditioning still at this point. We're just neither. Sleepy, get over here. Come on, get over here, man. I feel like this is somehow wrong without you. Let's put a spot right here for Sleepy. It's okay. We're gonna let you in on ours because we can share. We can do the whole stick mic thing, like stick mic journalism.
So this is gonna segue into your.
Yeah, so this is a big deal because for our guys that have been watching this for 1 year, this is Sleepy. This is the man behind the camera.
Yeah, so when you hear burps and farts and when we spontaneously in the middle of the podcast just have to cut it and walk out.
Yeah.
It's this guy.
It's that. Well,
sorry.
So I'm sorry about that. So go ahead. Yeah, I'm not. This is my first time doing live journalism. So stick mic reporting with your Unkie Phil. So this is a big thing for us. Is how the hell did you hatch the idea? Because if you're watching this is all Sleepy. Sleepy invented this entire thing. How the hell did you come up with that? I'm giving you the mic.
Well, knowing you for a bunch of years, which is weird because I've known you for a long time, but we weren't really good friends for I knew you. And I was in the squid scene, doing squid things.
We're just gonna segue out.
Oh yeah, there you go. All right, we'll flip. That's cool. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. We'll cross the streams.
Yeah. Well, dude, you know what? We could set.
Here you go. Just do that.
All right.
You're fine.
I'll edit
We're fine.
that out.
It's fine. You don't even have to. It's beautiful. The people should understand what this looks like.
Okay.
This is what happens when Sleepy's not behind the camera.
All right.
So, to give you a little bit of thing.
This is great. This is scripted.
No, this isn't scripted.
Yeah,
punk rock, back many years ago, the punk rock community in Cleveland, we had our factions. We had the Scooter Boys. We had a whole bunch of Scooter Boys. We had some Rudies. We had some Skins. We had all that thing going. And then it was the 90s. All of a sudden, the guy showed up with the giant pants and the sport bikes covered in fur. In the Cleveland, Akron area, those guys were called the Star Boys. Right. And the Star Boys were the guys that were like on lightly stolen motorcycles, doing wheelies, and generally kind of creating havoc. And we were always like sitting there, people are like, hey, do a wheelie on your Lambretta.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll try. I was like, I'll give it a shot. But it was very funny because occasionally at certain shows and certain events, we would run into each other.
Right.
The streams would cross.
But it was funny because there were some punk rock dudes that were involved in the sport bike scene.
Yes.
And some even hardcore punk rock dudes and stuff like that. But then there was a lot of chachas.
Yes.
So that was kind of a weird mix, and that kind of divided. So for me, it was kind of weird because I ended up forming a company called Rider for Life with a couple other dudes, and we kind of did the clothing that supported the stunt scene.
And we saw you at every motorcycle show.
All the shows.
You drag in 75 boxes of t-shirts and sweatshirts and shit.
Did you speak into the mic, please?
Yeah. Yeah, finally getting some of it on your own angle. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so we'd see each other all the time and everything like that. But it was really weird because I always thought that you guys were having more of the fun that I wanted to have.
Well, okay, so two people who view, remember, I'm a motorcyclist and a scooterist at the same time. So, I mean, what I'm riding every day, it just matters which way the wind's blowing.
Right.
But I fell in love with scooters. I absolutely did. I'll be the first to admit it. And I can ride a 180 mile an hour motorcycle and then ride a scooter and actually be like, they're both kind of the same. They're both equally fun.
Right.
And I've always thought that, but in the scooter community, we honestly didn't try as hard. We kind of were like, oh, well, this guy's a cool guy. We don't care if his bike only goes 60 miles an hour.
Right. And I was definitely scooter curious at that time.
You were absolutely scooter curious.
Because I was definitely into like, I knew Mike Seat and all those guys from Cafe Racer magazine. And so back then, actually, at the time that you had that store, I had an RD 350 that I was building into an RD 400 with like Toomey pipes, and like I was way ahead of the ball on that one. And then at the same time, I got a oil 1987 GSXR 750 that I started to convert into like a straight up British like hooligan street fighter.
Cool.
Like tail cut, the
high
whole
cut,
fucking
high tail,
nine, everything.
Right.
So like I had these curiosities that the other guys just didn't get.
They didn't
give a shit about. So it was kind of a weird thing, and then as that burned out and the Jankos got bigger, and Scott found God, and everything else happened weird. Like,
well, it happened with anything, like any scene or any community. Yeah. Once it's like becomes somebody's profession, and once somebody is like, oh, well, we're going to pay you to come and do this presentation here, or we're going to pay you to come and speak at this thing, and it wasn't really just about riding motorcycles anymore. It became very much like, oh, we have to do the show circuit to get paid, right? And then it started being. We saw the guys in that club go from being really approachable and really fun to being like, yeah, well, don't talk to me if you're not, doing 12 o'clock
and
wheelies
also
or
a lot
whatever.
of the cool guys, I mean, there was attrition to it too. Guys hurt themselves, some guys died. A lot of guys went to jail.
A lot of guys went to jail.
For a long time.
A whole lot of guys went to jail.
Especially when like a lot of the guys, like I was never part of like the stealing the bike scene or anything. I had 900 RRs. I bought them all. They all had titles. I was not the greatest stunt dude. I'll be the first one to admit it. I could do wheelies. I was a stoppy guy, but I was not those guys. Right.
There were some really talented riders in that group. Unfortunately, there was a warehouse.
Yeah, and there was a parts attrition. Because when you're that good, you drop your bike a lot. I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but you're trying new shit, so you're dropping bikes all the time. And so a lot of those guys got caught for stealing bikes.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
And the sad part was they would lure the new kids that just got their first payment on the 636 in and make them feel all comfy. And then we'd all be hanging out, and then dude be like, hey, where's my bike?
Oh, somebody must have stolen it. Oh, that happens all the time. It's a real shame when people steal your bike.
And then Timmy, who had a blown up motor last week,
all of a sudden he's good to go again.
New motor. Same
Absolutely
bike.
good to go.
Old bike.
Absolutely good
motor.
to go. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think when they finally got busted, when that all went down, I can't help but think that there was a lot of inside information.
Well, remember they tried to do an actual like a shop.
No, they were actually trying to have anybody who runs a motorcycle shop. It looks like it's fun. We bullshit around, we smoke cigarettes and drink beer, but there's a lot of permits involved. There's a lot of insurance involved. The state wants their cut. And there are people.
You can't sell stolen shit.
There are people who come and actually check your inventory. And the thing was, you can't open a legal shop without paying taxes and expect to be able to sell stolen inventory.
Right.
Like, it was a bit of a red flag.
It was not good.
And that kind of all went down in flames in one time. It was pretty epic. Yeah.
And so actually, like for about 5 years, maybe about 3 years, I actually stopped riding. I got burned out. I was sick of it. And, then I slowly, once this is in your blood, you're not going to go away for long. So I ended up getting a scooter and something else like that. In fact, I think
you showed up at my shop.
I showed at your shop because I got a job in
I was
Willoughby.
like, I think I know you.
Yeah, and I was like, I know you too. Yeah, I started talking, and then I bought a scooter off you, and you mentioned the podcast.
Yeah.
And I started listening to it, and I'm like, fuck, that's a fun time. And
horrible quality.
Well, yeah, but
garbage quality.
But I still enjoyed everybody. Like the personalities were there, and I'm like, these are all the guys that I want to be hanging out with. And so I called. One day I stopped in, and you said, "Why don't you stop down on the podcast?" And then I just never left.
That was exactly it. I was like, okay, great, that's cool. That has happened. I mean, so this whole community, this strange thing, it is something about giving men of a certain age a place to be on Thursday night. Right. And then it also gives us an outlet for sometimes it's like, okay, we could go to the beer engine, we could go to the bar, and we could pound 12 beers and just look at the bartender, or we could hang out with a group of our friends and have a discussion.
Well, and I think
every week.
And the cool part about this group, and the reason I really kind of drew toward it, is that nobody here is like a prowler. Nobody's out like girl hunting or being. There's nothing wrong with that. But
most of us are married.
That's my point. It's like I don't have anything in common with those guys anymore. So like this is a good group of guys to hang out for me, anyways.
Yeah, and because we do. if you haven't noticed this already, we appreciate all kinds of different channels of the motorcycle.
And we also do a lot of dumb shit.
We do a ton of dumb shit.
So, like, to find enough people that were willing to do dumb shit like I wanted to do at our age.
Exactly.
It's pretty interesting.
And if somebody shows up on a Triumph or somebody shows up on a Harley, we all kind of go out and we admire it, appreciate it, have fun with it.
Right.
And it is a very fun group. And what we've learned is in some other groups that I've been in with Harley Davidsons, and you've been in with Crotch Rockets,
everything,
they're not so welcoming to things that are outside of that lane. So we're very, very non-denominational.
That's one of the things that used to piss me off. Like when I was looking at Vespas and stuff, they're like, why would you want that? It only goes 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Like they didn't get their head around that there's just a different riding
It's not even about how fast you're going. It's what you're doing when you're doing that speed. It's just hilarious.
And it has a unique feeling. A two-stroke scooter feels like nothing else.
And there's something about, like, if you think your bike is fast enough, make the wheels smaller.
Yeah, it's true.
You make the wheels smaller until the bike feels too fast.
Right.
And that, you've now just invented a scooter.
Right.
And, last night I'm on the freeway going home on a 150cc Vespa. So that's fucking wrong.
Yeah, no.
And I'm in a full tuck on a 150cc Vespa showing an indicated 74, 75 miles an hour, which we know is fair game 68, right?
Yeah,
68,
there,
70.
sure.
But I'm passing people. And I'm passing people at 48 degrees Fahrenheit in a full tuck on a Vespa. If you think that is boring, you haven't done it.
Right. Or better than that is one of the
it's exciting.
The fast scooters, like the BV.
Yeah.
I got that. So I had my surgery a couple years ago because of my dumb being stupid in a few wrecks and stuff. I had to have my hip replaced.
Right.
And I couldn't get on a motorcycle because I couldn't sit, like especially leading up to the surgery and stuff like that. So I came and I bought a BV off you. You were cool enough to hook me up. And one of my favorite things in the world was the one time it was nice fall afternoon and I'm out cruising. And I pull up to a light and a Harley pulls up next to me and he tries to be cool and take off, but that's a 110 mile an hour scooter.
That's a 500cc fuel injected 4-valve scooter.
Yeah.
So your Harley taking off, that's great. But on power to weight ratio, the BV's got it all over you.
So I smoked the dude and went all the way down the street. He could barely keep up with me. We get to the next stoplight. He pulls up next to me. He's looking at me. And I had my modular helmet, so I flip it up. I'm like, can I help you? He's like, if it goes that goddamn fast, why would you get a scooter? I just looked at him. I'm like, because I'm gay. And like just those just because of those kind of interactions.
Oh, absolutely,
it made it fucking amazing.
Hell yes.
But so the reason that Moto Stories came about was even before the podcast and me coming to the podcast, I'd see you at the motorcycle shows or whatever. And toward the end of the show, or at the indie show back in the day for the
dealer show. The dealer show is massive, or used to be massive.
Right. So either one of these things, you'd be walking through and you're tired from being there all day.
Just beat.
And I'd always come across a pile of people. And 90% of the time, in the middle of the pile of people would be Phil. Yeah. And Phil would be just like regaling this story. And
we call it holding court. We'd hold court.
And so, when you first hear it, and if you don't know Phil really well, you're like, this dude's so full of shit. There's no fucking, who the fuck has stories like this, right? But then like you go, and they'll be like, oh, you know Phil, blah, blah. Oh man, this one time I was in Pennsylvania with him, and we hit a moose, and it turned into us bobsledding with fucking alcohol and naked girls. And you're like, holy shit, that fucking story was true.
Well,
So after we did all this.
Yeah, just give me a guy.
All right.
You're good. Yep, bye-bye. That was just still working. So John doesn't work here anymore, but he still has keys.
Right.
And apparently he's still on the clock enough to deliver a Stella to
But that was the
cross-country shipping.
That was the whole point of this was I want more people to hear them because they're a good story. People people go to hear spoken word. People go to do that. We're not going to be here forever, but I think these stories being preserved and being somewhere.
That's what I really appreciate too, because what it's done is every time we drop one of these, right? So every time we drop one of these due to my social media, your social media or whatever, invariably people who were at the event will see it. And they'll be like, wait, shit, he's talking about me.
It's some of the best. I love getting the notifications. Because I have the app on my phone and I get all the notifications when they come in, and there's so many good ones.
We have what the listeners didn't know or the viewers didn't know until So Sleepy and I've got some stories that I just don't feel right telling without certain people sitting next to me.
Right.
And we're gonna have to do a road trip, and so there's gonna have to be a road trip because I really feel like I can't do some of these stories justice unless my co-conspirator is.
Well, and the best part about that, I've seen it happen with you and John, I've seen it happen with you and other people, is that you remember certain aspects of it, and that person remembers different aspects.
Yeah,
and so you say something, it springs something in their brain, and then the next thing you know, the story just got way more intense.
Did you ever hear that statement that if you have never told a story, right, the first time you tell the story is going to be the most pure retelling of that event.
Sure.
So the more times you tell a story, the more alterations happen to that story. And it's great because if you met somebody who was on site for the same exact event 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and each of you throw your story out there, somewhere in the middle is the truth. Somewhere between those two things is what really happened. Yeah.
I'll give you here's a non-motorcycle related story, but it's pretty fucking good. And to your point, I would always wanted to hear the other person's side of the story.
Yeah.
So when I was in college, I asked this girl out that was way over my league.
Way out of your league.
Way out of my league. And she said yes, and I was like, holy shit.
Okay, now for the record, if you see pictures of him from when he was in college, he looks like a weird combination of Vanilla Ice and Guy Fieri.
I had dreads. There was interesting things.
He had dreadlocks. Yeah, like it was a hell of a thing going on.
Good. I'll find a picture. I'll throw
It's
a
great.
couple of
It's
pictures
cool.
up. Yeah.
If you see Sleepy when Sleepy was in his high school college years, it's worth the price of admission.
Yeah, it was a good time. So I was punching way out of my league. And so she said, yeah, let's go out.
Yeah.
So I went to Akron University and there was a restaurant, Marcelita's. It was a Mexican restaurant. It was where you went. Big cocktails. They usually didn't card. Great place. So I take this girl there and we have a couple, I don't think she drank. I think I did. I was drinking.
You clearly drank.
Yeah. And, I had a burrito and she had whatever. And so she's like, yeah, let's go back to my dorm. My roommates are there. We're hanging out. We're going to watch a movie. And I was like, sweet, this is going way better than I expected.
Yeah.
So
we just need to get rid of some roommates.
Well, the nerves in my stomach and everything and what we just ate, by the time we get there, I'm not doing too good.
No, you're not doing too good.
My stomach is not doing well, right?
Yeah.
So she comes in, she goes, hey guys, this is Steve, and her roommates, the girl, they're sorority girls, and the dude's boyfriend is a fraternity guy.
He's a fraternity guy.
He looks at me, and we're not getting along.
No, you're not getting along instantly. Yeah.
So at that point, my stomach is just raw.
Yeah.
And so I was like, where's your restroom? And so she points to a door right next to the couch where everybody's sitting.
Oh no.
So I'm like, great,
no, in the same sound zone.
Same room, same
everything. That's
everything.
not good.
So I disappear into this room and I turn the water on, I turn the shower on.
You could turn anything on.
Put the fan on.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And I proceed, you ever see the Dumb and Dumber
You'd have
scene?
to burn a bath towel.
Yeah. Remember the scene in Dumb and Dumber?
Never seen the movie.
You never seen it?
Never seen the movie.
So Jeff Daniels goes in a shitter and just has his legs up.
I kind of think I know where this is going.
Going ape shit, right? So I'm like, I'm in there for way too long. Yeah. Like 20 minutes.
You've destroyed it.
Destroyed.
Yeah.
Destroyed
You've
it,
destroyed
right?
it. There should be nobody left in this room when you go out.
I finish everything I got to do, and I'm like, just face the music, man.
Yeah.
Hit the thing, open the door, and I'm standing there, and they're like, so how did everything come out? Ha, ha, ha.
Ha, ha, ha.
And I'm like, we went to the thing. And as I say that, I hear water running. And I'm like, oh, really?
No.
And I turn and I look, and the toilet has overflowed now.
Yeah.
And along with water is most of what I left in the toilet, floating out of the toilet, coming out of the door, and right into the middle of the door. So I've basically just shit in this girl's apartment.
Yeah, you shit in the living room, yeah.
And so I kind of just turned and looked and said, well, I think I'll be going.
Yeah, that's it, I'm out.
And I just walked out the door and I left. And I got in the car and at first I was humiliated.
Yeah.
And then I just started to laugh.
Yeah, because what are you going to do?
And then it became like hilarious. And then I just went back, whatever. I'm like, well, I won't see her again.
That story had to chase you down.
Well, it did, but here's the thing. So I've told that story, and over the years, whatever.
Yeah.
But then one of my friends was like, I wonder what her version of it is. And that goes back to what you just said. Like, this fucking weirdo.
So did you get to hear her story?
I've never got to hear it.
All right, guys.
So, her name was Karen. I remember her
All right, if you're Karen and you went to University of Akron, right?
She went to Kent.
Oh, she went to Kent?
Yeah, she went to Kent. I was cross-pollinating.
Oh, you were cross-pollinating. Spreading it around a little bit.
But I wonder if her story is like, I don't know.
I love that. That's,
what would it be?
Fantastic.
It would
I
definitely
want
not
that.
be mine.
I want that story. I want that so bad. Because now we got your we got your half.
Right.
We got to find Karen.
It wasn't very flattering for me. I'm not sitting here sugarcoating anything.
All of mine aren't very flattering either.
Right.
I mean, yeah. There's not a lot of solid gold at the end of my fucking rainbow sometimes.
So go back. If your name's Karen and you had a dude basically shit in the middle of your apartment,
ruin your apartment in the dorm, no less.
Let us know about it.
That sounds good, man. So, you guys, viewers, this is what we do. This is kind of how it came about. And if you are a person that was present for any of these shenanigans, please get in touch with us. Let us know because we can aim a camera at you too.
Yeah, and also if you're coming into Cleveland and you know Phil and you got stories, let us know ahead of time, man.
Right.
Let's try to arrange something because we'd love to have you on the shows.
Fun. That would be a blast. And we try to do that. We try to take our friends hostage when they come into town.
And so as we talk, so just you guys know, since I'm probably the last time I'll ever be on this side of this thing, our goal is to build this channel up enough to get a few bucks together, not so that we can go and party.
Nope.
But we want to take that money and bring more interesting people in to make more and better stories.
The idea of the Moto Stories thing is to make the Moto Stories something that can be a road trip.
Right.
So we can afford to maybe jump on an airplane and go interview some people we're not going to mention right now, but you know who you are.
Right.
If you hung out with me and we got,
And yes, we are selfish. Like we are thinking like we are going to have fun doing this. But the goal is not money. It's more stories.
More stories. And it's the kind of thing where if we rolled into San Diego or we rolled into Portland or something like that, we could get trapped there with like 3 days of nothing but Moto Stories. Because there's certain people that happen to live in those cities, and you know who you are, 80. We've done some crap. So it'd be more fun if we had a few cocktails and shared that with the whole planet too.
And then as COVID goes away, we'll be taking the camera with us when we go to more places with Cleveland Moto.
Yeah, well, all of our friends are vaccinated because strange, we've decided to go from the control group into the affected group.
Although I started watching some MMA, so I'm thinking about taking some ivermectin or something.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great. Just be healthy. That's all you really need. Yeah, that's it. So thanks again, Sleepy. Thank you so much for doing this. To the viewers out there, ride fast, take chances.
Fuck, I can't push the button.
You can't push the button from here.